Hong Kong protesters evade police and keep demonstrations alive. Visual investigations by the New York Times. Yum, 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 yum. Can you imagine the New York Times ever doing a 2-minute and 50-second analysis of how Black Lives Matter is appropriately evading authorities? This is really good stuff. Let's take a look. I think this is very, very instructional, informational, instrumental. It's good to learn from other successful protests. Also, this is kind of unrelated, but do tankies like Donald Trump now? Because Donald Trump, in an effort to, criticize China, has decided to no longer offer zero tariffs to Hong Kong. Even though it looks like he's like criticizing China, he's kind of caving into their demands, making it much worse for Hong Kong overall, and allowing Hong Kong to fully submit to the Chinese sovereignty. So that's kind of weird that he did that while also saying, like, I'm so mad at China, which is why I'm going to give Hong Kong over to China. I know that there are people who offer critical support in this circumstance to China. They're still in here right now that probably think like that's a good decision. Okay, let's watch New York Times video.
Traffic cones, suitcases, and laser pointers. These are just some of the objects that have been made into tactical gear by demonstrators in Hong Kong. Protests here began 9 weeks ago in response to a controversial extradition bill, but demonstrators are now demanding more widespread democratic reforms. Protesters have faced a heavy police crackdown, and while some have gotten violent by throwing bricks and using slingshots, many more have employed innovative tactics to stay safe.
Man, look at these violent looters and rioters, and look at how violent they're being to cops, dude. Wow. Shameful. Shameful experience that we're witnessing here. Those police officers did not even remotely deserve to have bricks thrown at them by these Hong Kong protesters. What?
Many more have employed innovative tactics to stay safe.
Everybody loved this shit a week ago. What happened? When black people do it, though,
they've tried to extinguish tear gas canisters with water bottles, using traffic cones and metal bowls to snuff out the gas before it spreads. On the front lines, many demonstrators wear makeshift armor. Saran wrap becomes skin protection, while garbage can lids and luggage are made into shields. Protesters have adopted a strategy they're calling Be Water in order to evade the police. It means—
Wait, I need to mention something here. Notice how this says Hong Kong protesters and it doesn't say Hong Kong riots. Do you know why? Because it's not a riot. Wait, what? It's not a riot? What do you mean it's not a riot? What's a riot then? Just when black people do it? Is that what you're actually saying? They're throwing bricks with slingshots at police officers, dude. What? They're literally slingshotting bricks at cops. You're going to say, if you think that that's a protest, which I think that's a protest as well, by the way, we have no disagreement. But you can't turn around and say it's a riot in America when the Black Lives Matter protesters aren't even throwing bricks at cops or aren't disorganized at their retaliation to the oppressive police force that is increasingly more violent every day. Hassan, you fucking idiot. You're not seriously using a title for a YouTube video as a talking point? Are you telling me that the New York Times coverage of the Hong Kong protests was not covered by almost every single media outlet as just a protest and never as a riot because it was in Hong Kong and against China? It's not just this YouTube video's title. Like, there's a reason why people in here are trying to make a distinction between Hong Kong and what's happening right now in America, because it was covered as a riot. I mean, it was covered as a protest, sorry. Whereas what's happening now in America is covered as a riot. That is manufacturing consent.
And here, riot police have just arrived to disperse a crowd that has already left.
Wait, so there's riot police, but it's not a riot? Wait, I'm confused. What's going on? Were there destruction of property and looting? Of course there was, man. What are you, crazy? Good luck finding videos of that on American news outlets. And I'm not interested in going to mainland China news outlets to show how devastating the Hong Kong protesters were. Can I just ask someone what this would be considered? What if black people started arming themselves with bows and arrows and started shooting at police officers with bows and arrows? Can people who were telling me that, you know, black people are doing thug stuff, but Hong Kong was actually peacefully demonstrating. Can you explain to me how this works, or considered cool as fuck, in my opinion? Listen, I have no problem. I'm saying that retaliatory violence to police violence in that circumstance, or defensive actions taken against a increasingly more violent police force in a situation where a riot is breaking out to protect your own people, is an appropriate measure. But I'm an adult about it because I understand why people in Hong Kong were protesting, and I understand how those protests would turn into riots, just like I understand how protests in America turn into riots. The same reason why those protests in Hong Kong would turn into riots, even though it didn't get coverage as though they were riots, and the same protests in America that turn into riots, even though they do get coverage as riots, is because police officers retaliate. Police officers end up hitting people, tear gassing them. That's the common denominator. I am sorry, but you can't sit here and tell me that there is a difference between what is going on in Hong Kong versus what's going on in America, and act like you're not just totally giving yourself up on the racism aspect. Act like you're totally fucking not just a chud. You can't sit here and be like, there's a gigantic difference between people in Hong Kong firing bows and arrows at police officers versus when, you know, in America they throw a water bottle at a police officer. It's totally reasonable use of force against that. By the way, in Hong Kong, during those peaceful demonstrations, a man who did the All Lives Matter shit to the Hong Kong protesters was lit on fire. That's another thing that happened in Hong Kong. Remember, though, peaceful protest, by the way, in Hong Kong, it's peaceful. In America, when that happens, it's like, it's just a riot, dude. These are thugs looting and hurting the police force that's here to protect us. Right? Right? Take notes, motherfuckers. Yeah, in China, thank you, Jake. In China, they depict the Hong Kong riots as a bunch of terrorists. Shocked to find out that the oppressive authoritarian country in that circumstance portrays the counter-protesters against them as terrorists who are violent. And they do violent things because it's a fucking riot. The difference, though, in America is that this is universally applauded, whereas when our own citizens protest against our own government, then that is a Blue Lives Matter opportunity. It's totally fucked. Wait a minute, guys. Wait, what? Wait, that's crazy. That's crazy that they were lighting... Wait, why were they lighting stores on fire? Wait, that's crazy. I thought you guys said there was no looting and no stores were being caught on fire in Hong Kong. Dude, I'm so sorry. Oh, wow. That's so wild. Yo, I want to hear these chuds. Hey, give me more of these takes, guys. Explain to me how peacefully they were protesting in Hong Kong, because they know how to act. They know how to act right. It must have been the white Antifa out there, too. Asian Antifa. Well, I do want to say that the hot take here is that it was a Chinese-owned company, so it was targeted for that reason. Doesn't matter. The whole point is they're burning buildings there, too. Of course. Of course it happens. It happens in riots. That's my point. And protests turn into riots because people are rightfully angry. People in Hong Kong were rightfully angry at the Chinese government for trying to change the extradition laws and trying to enforce their authoritarian laws in an area that certainly has been dominated by colonialism, that's certainly been destroyed by capitalism as well, because the poor people of Hong Kong are suffering, absolutely suffering. However, what matters in the circumstances, they still f up Starbuckses, they still f up stores, because within that righteous anger, sometimes things get out of control. Every single protest turns into a riot. And an instance of every single protest, no matter how peaceful those demonstrations originally are, people historically, especially amongst the dominating class, have treated them as criminals, as violent thugs. Wait, what? No way. Wait, that's capital that's being harmed in these peaceful protests. That's so crazy. That's so crazy. By the way, I am in no way, shape, or form saying that any of this stuff is inappropriate. I'm just trying to show you the hypocrisy between people who try to tell you that Hong Kong is different and that here in America, they're doing a much worse job than Hong Kong. Okay? Or here in America, they got out-of-state agitators, or it's white Antifa, or any number of different things. Here's the reality. Okay? Here's the universal reality of protests. The vocal minority that is rising up against an oppressive authoritarian government is always going to be treated as terrorists or rioters or violent agitators or whatever you want to call it. There's different flavors to it. Ultimately, you either agree with the cause of the protest and understand why they're angry, or you disagree with the cause of the protest. That's how easy this is. And for a lot of people, they just simply can't get themselves to say, I disagree with the cause of this protest, even though that is genuinely the reason why they are so vocally upset about storefronts being damaged, where people are getting f***ed up, where people are losing their eyes and shit. Like, it's crazy. Hassan is leaving out a critical detail. The Hong Kong protesters are not black and therefore cannot be rioters. I keep forgetting that incredibly important detail. Yeah, I keep forgetting. They're not black, so they're surviving. They're not black, so they're not rioting. They're just peacefully protesting. I hope for some of you who are watching this right now, this opens up your eye a little bit. This opens up your mind just a little bit to exactly how hypocritical most people are and exactly how brainwashed you are into thinking that something is totally appropriate in one circumstance, but that exact same thing is totally inappropriate when it happens here.